Elon Musk, the controversial billionaire who may or may not be the richest person alive, is now also the controversial CEO of Twitter. After a lengthy, messy, drawn-out deal, including court cases, multiple attempted backouts, and a bathroom sink, Elon has finally entered Twitter HQ last week as the self-described chief twit. After immediately firing the entire senior staff, Elon is quickly making drastic changes that are altering Twitter as a platform entirely, potentially destroying it forever. He wants you to pay for the blue check. Specifically $8. Originally, it was more around 15 or 20, but he immediately backed down, apparently after Stephen King called him out, of all people. Elon announced his plan on the morning of November 1st in a series of tweets. Twitter's current lords and peasants system for who has or doesn't have a blue checkmark is bullshit. Power to the people, blue for $8 a month. He goes on to say, price adjusted by country, proportionate to purchasing power parity. You will also get priority in replies, mentions and searches, which is essential to defeat spam/scam. Ability to post long video and audio, half as many ads. And paywall bypass for publishers willing to work with us. This will also give Twitter a revenue stream to reward content creators. There will be a secondary tag below the name for someone who is a public figure, which is already the case for politicians. This is a pretty radical plan, to say the least, and the backlash has been pretty noticeable. To put it bluntly, the point of a blue checkmark is the status that comes with it. It's bragging rights, plain and simple. So to turn it into a cheap subscription tier flips the entire point of what it actually is and removes all perceived value associated with it. However, what seems even more concerning are the other features that come with it. Priority in replies, though pitched as another defense against Elon's favorite vague scapegoat, the bots, seemingly undermines his main goal of creating free speech in the town square of the internet. Like, how are you trying to make a free speech platform for all while simultaneously prioritizing other people's voices depending on whether or not they pay? That's stupid. You're baking monetary bias into the platform itself. What's worse is the ability to post long audio and video. It reads like there's going to be an innate cap on what you can post for free, which again completely destroys why people use this platform in the first place. I'm gonna inject a little bit of my opinion here, okay? This is a little less journalistic, but listen. Twitter is a toy. It's become insanely powerful and influential, but the idea of gamifying conversations is exactly why the platform took off the way it did. There's a reason why everyone's using Twitter instead of posting paragraph-long blog posts. Twitter is a game. You get points, you get status, you get to ratio people. That's also why it's pretty much the worst thing that's ever happened to society. Most people aren't shy about the fact that they hate being on Twitter, that it's a horrible place, and that they don't really know why they're on it. I would akin this to like junk food media. Like how it feels good to crack open a bag of chips, and once you do, you can't really stop. But when it's all said and done, you feel disgusting. But eventually, you're always gonna buy another bag of Doritos, because fuck it, life is short. But this is the equivalent of if like a fourth of the way into your bag, you get hit with a paywall. This is a messy metaphor, I know, but you kind of see what I'm saying. To call Twitter users content creators is kind of funny. Not that there isn't legitimate creators on this app, but Twitter feels like an extension to what a lot of other creators are doing. I know that's what a lot of big creators use it for. It's not a lot of people's primary way of making things. It's just not their main bag. So to make them pay to use those features, and they don't really even care about that anyways, I could see it backfiring. And I feel like Elon knows all of this to an extent, because he closed his big statement subtly saying that basically the blue check, or like what the blue check means, will live on, this time by vaguely listing the person as a public figure. Now he brings up politicians as an example, which is like kind of the easiest one. This is gonna quickly get a lot more complicated. The point of the original check was always to signify that that was the real person. Now later it kind of became a meme and a status symbol, which makes sense, but originally it was just meant to dictate that that was actually the person's Twitter account and not an impersonator or a bot, which is pretty necessary when presidential campaigns are relying on this service. But this is where it starts to get a little tricky. What constitutes a public figure? Nowadays, in the world of internet micro-celebrities with so many people having status and fame, it seems like there's more people than ever that would have to be distinguished as their actual selves. But who decides that? Who decides who's worthy of being a public figure? Is it Elon's vague Twitter council that will have to unanimously make decisions? Is that really the best use of their time? Will this be a whole separate team that he's gonna devote to this, like kind of how it is now? Because his plan to drastically cut the workforce might make that a little bit difficult. Similarly, changing the meaning of the blue checkmark might be the worst thing that's ever happened to misinformation. If you're a chronic Twitter user or have been keeping up with this news, you'll know there's been a change to the blue checkmark. But for a casual user, or even worse, somebody seeing a tweet screen capped and brought on a different platform without context, they could have no idea that it changed from being the thing that lets us know that Joe Biden is Joe Biden and some guy with $8. Let's say I make an account with a username and handle close enough to a celebrity or a high profile figure. Then I just jack their profile picture. With the blue checkmark system, it's really easy to spot that that's fake. We know this because there's a lot of pranksters with fake accounts that try to make it look like they're the real thing, but ultimately they don't get through because of the system. But now let's say we're in the age of Elon's Twitter and I have $8. Even if there's some system in place to explain the new checkmark, like a little information icon next to it or a big press rollout, you're not going to be able to fully stop people not understanding its changed meaning. Not for a while, at least. So all of a sudden, an average Twitter user could have an insane amount of power to temporarily impersonate a celebrity or spread fake news. The trickiest thing about the blue checkmark is that it's almost psychologically baked into our brains at this point. We consume so many tweets at once that I personally have learned to just look for the blue checkmark, and it's true in my head. The dumb checkmark has become a universal symbol of verification. So to quickly change that almost overnight with this new system is gonna have a lot of negative effects. I'm not saying we won't learn to change, but it's gonna be messy for a minute. Like I mentioned before, the response has been overwhelmingly negative. The only ones who are really supporting it are like Elon writers anyways, and let's be honest, they're just gonna support anything the man does. And that's just a small fraction of the platform. I will say the amount of people that are publicly announcing that they're gonna leave Twitter are equally as lame in my opinion. It has big "I'm moving to Canada" energy. You can do you, and you're allowed to say whatever you want to say, but the responses these people are being met with are usually along the lines of "who cares, good riddance." It's not like you publicly announcing it is going to create any real change. I think this is forcing us to all take a look at what Twitter really is. In my opinion, Twitter is tabloid news posing as an important information source. There's been a lot of times where I've gotten great information from the service and learned important things via Twitter, but they're far and few between. It's a place where updates on the horrifying war in Ukraine are shoved against Minecraft YouTube drama and paid advertisements for the new Doctor Strange film. These, in my opinion, are the real issues with the platform, not the blue checkmark or the peasant system that he's describing. Which leads me to the conclusion that ultimately, Elon's first major decision at the company is based on one thing and one thing only: money. No matter what moral reason he gives it, this is a money move. Twitter is far from a money-making machine, and that's no big secret. The company hasn't been profitable pretty much ever. Now, disclaimer, I'm not going to sit here and pretend to understand the economics of Twitter or try to explain them to you. I'm not an economist and I don't understand big tech. Honestly, don't think anybody does, but that's a different point. To me, Twitter has ads and an insane user base, so I'm not entirely sure how they're not pulling a major profit. But one thing is clear from all this though: the fun times are behind us. Now it's time we all grow up a little bit and realize that these free services where we're really the product aren't always gonna be insanely profitable or sustainable. And Elon is the first person to kind of take that step. So in a way, he has the potential to bring Twitter and himself to the front of an entirely new social media landscape. If his radical ideas do work, it could signal to other big tech platforms that they now have leeway to change their profit models, albeit ultimately at the detriment of us consumers. But that's a big if. His ideas are already generating a massive divide and receiving immense backlash from the general public and Twitter's user base as a whole. Musk is ultimately taking a gamble. A big bet that us, the consumers, are more addicted and reliant on these platforms than what the platforms eventually become. This is a question of how much he can change while still keeping Twitter, and how much we're willing to put up with. We've seen massive social media giants crumble before, notably services like Tumblr, after making big dramatic changes to their platform, also based on making more money. Though in the case of Tumblr, it was more so a mass exodus of everybody leaving for Twitter, but with Twitter falling, it seems like there's no big platform to jump to, unless everybody becomes a Redditor, which I don't know if that's good either. There have been other big attempts at Twitter rival platforms, mostly started by conservative and far-right media outlets, and they've mostly been dead in the water. However, even Jack Dorsey, the original creator of Twitter, is trying to make his own social media again. So we'll see. I mean, there could be another major player in the future. Just look at TikTok. That came out of nowhere and changed everyone's lives, for the worse mostly. And while pretty much all of these have failed up to this point, there's never been a really big reason to leave Twitter until now. The ultimate question behind all of this is why? Why did Elon spend billions on a platform that's ultimately problematic and not profitable? Are his claims of free speech for all and a truly fair public town square earnest, or just a public facade for a deeper reason? Or worst of all, is this a man who overplayed his hand and is now forced to helm a sinking ship against his will, and this is him flailing at the helm trying to stay afloat? I don't know. All I know is that the future of this whole situation is up to one man. We'll have to wait and see what happens. That being said, I want to turn the question to you guys. Do you think these changes are good? Do you hate them? Do you think Elon is great for Twitter? Do you think he's the worst thing that's ever happened? Will you pay for the blue check mark? Let me know in those comments down below. Let's get a conversation going. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time. Peace.